So for a career person that wants to start a business, what would be your advice for people who are, I'm working in the career, but I've always had this, ideas, and I've always thought about starting my own business. And I know that, you've also helped a lot of people who are career professionals, but they've also started businesses, and some have even quit their jobs and started business full time. So, what are the tips that, you give to professionals who want to, start a business?
Probably 40 or 50% of the professionals that join Career Leap eventually realize that they actually have some passion engraved in them, and they actually want to drive or create a business or a startup, a tech startup, whatever it is for them. And one of the key things that I learned from my startup, and I mentioned it briefly, but I'm going to say it again. I think there's a lot in terms of think big, dream big, make things like incredible things happen. And yeah, it's nice if eventually you have something big to kind of as a goal, but I can't stress it enough. Start small. Don't go big. Start small, start experimenting small, start figuring out who is your audience. Do you really add value? Do they really want what it is that you want to offer? And the more you can experiment in a small and fast and agile way, the more successful it's going to be in the future. So I don't believe anymore in really like heads down, let's sit for a year and create something remarkable and come with it to the world. Mm-hmm. I don't believe it works this way. And I mean, the majority of the companies that I am seeing, if they started this way, they're not doing well.
Yeah.
Even if they raise a lot of capital, they come out and nobody wants what they're providing. So I don't believe in this anymore. I think we live in a different world now. And the more you're going to start slower and smaller and kind of agile, but in a limited way, that's when it's gold, because that's when you understand what your audience wants. You understand the need. You understand it gives you power to succeed. It's you're not as afraid to fail because you're already seeing success. So to me, it's like about the small, experimentation, the small steps forward, and eventually you can grow the goal with time as well.
You're also proponent for letting people know that they could also use speaking opportunities to increase their, visibility and their brand. For someone who says, "Oh, I'm scared about public speaking. I really don't know if this is a thing for me." What would be your advice for people to leverage, public speaking?
I can't stress enough how public speaking puts you just in a different light, right? Because the minute people see you on stage or in a webinar or whatever, right? The minute they see you as the the thought leader in that, right? In that, topic, then the entire mind shifts, right? And it's true for founders that are doing, like a lecture to investors. It's true for, for keynotes. It's true for everything. And it's an amazing platform that I don't know if it's used enough. Yeah. And and yes, I'm a paid speaker, but honestly, it's worth, for most people, it's worth talking for free just for the spotlight that it's going to light on you. Mm. And just for being a thought leader in that space, and just for branding yourself, and just for having another thing that you're known for, that is really important. And one of the things that happened, I think, with COVID is that people can now do, small webinars and small little workshops so easily, right? I mean, put it on your Facebook, invite a few friends, do a low key, chat, and you get started, right? And then, the second time will always be better. The first time is harder, and you're stressed and you don't really know what you're going to say. The second time will be better, and the third time will be amazing, and the 10th time you will start being known for it and start getting pinged from people all over to give that talk to them, right? So it's really about just making that first step. And if you're resisting the big stage, no problem. Like now with COVID, we don't have big stages anyway. So just take the plunge, do a short webinar, do a short workshop. And by the way, for small businesses, there's nothing better than to check, right? And it great, right? I mean, there's nothing better than to check it if people will resonate with what you're teaching in a small environment. And that's amazing. That's where you learn about them. That's where you show your knowledge. That's what, it's cool.
So I have a lot of people that ask questions in regards to starting a business, right? To as a startup, and their major challenge is always funding, funding, funding. How do I get funding for my startup, right? And I know you coach people who want to do this. So how do you? What's your advice or some tips that you give people who say, "Oh, I want to start a business," but I don't have the funding, I don't have investors. Like, what's your advice? What do you advise people?
First of all, I'm going to say something honest. I think that we got a little too used to getting funding.
Mm.
There's a huge bubble, people are, trying to barely stitch anything together, not taking any risk on themselves and just go with funding. And we're not even looking at the fact that, every restaurant owner, every hotel owner, I mean, they're all entrepreneurs, right? And some of them, yes, will take a loan. And some will have investments, but in general, they'll just take most of the risk on themselves. They're really going to analyze if this is the right business to start. And if it is, they're going to make it happen, right? And I think we're going towards investment a little too fast in many cases. And that's where it takes me back to, wait, before you raise money, get some traction, show interest, show that people care, show that people will change their habits based on what you're creating. And if they will, then trust me, the investors will also come, because then your story will be clear, your numbers will make sense, your traction will make sense, you'll know how you make money, everything will be aligned. But first, just try to figure out if anybody cares, because what I see today is things that nobody even knows and nobody bothered to test, and they're already going to raise money. And it's like, no, there's such easy ways to test this out. Test it first. So what I do with these people is, like, the professionals, is I help them experiment and test it as much as possible and gather the data and get the traction that they need, because then the investors will come in.
So I know you have what you call the master technique that you use to help people leap. Can you tell us a bit more about the master technique? So it's MASTER, that's what you teach people when they want to leap. And we've seen people, leap from careers into business through this master technique. So I'm excited, and I want to know more about the master technique that you teach and coach people about.
Thank you. You're awesome. So, I mean, for me, again, it all goes back to clarity first, right? So the M is for must have. Like, you first have to figure out exactly where you're heading and what's important for your career, because guess what? Our life changes. And life is in phases, and sometimes it's finance that is most important for us, and sometimes it's growth or reputation or even fame, and sometimes it's impact. We want to feel like we move the needle, and sometimes it's balance because we really want to be a little home, home more, for whatever reason, for health, for kids, for traveling, whatever, right? And no job will give you all four. So first of all, or no career, right? So you need to figure out what's really critical for you, and I allow people to choose only two. The other thing is basically your story, and you selecting a single career direction and your story, and you use some experimentation to achieve that growth. And then we create a target. So basically the T is for target, which is basically the actual leap plan. So once you know where you're heading, how are we going to get there? And that means, what are the gaps? How are we going to close those gaps? What what kind of reputation vehicles can I use to maybe close the gaps in the reputation area or in a networking area, and I don't necessarily have to go study for 4 more years, because many people already, they always go back and we're like, so maybe I need to study another year with something. And it's usually not the solution, because you will need to leap after you get out of school anyway. So that's not the solution. So how can we close those gaps? And how do you broaden your ecosystem, your network, and how do you boost your reputation? So that's the master technique. And then, I'm a big believer there's just these fundamental steps that you need to make in order to do it in the right way. And then the leap is relatively easy. I'm not saying easy, and not, but it's relatively doable when you get the clarity, when you get your story, when you boost your reputation, and then opportunities come your way because people see you in a different light. And that's when it's gold. And, if you're creating a business, awesome. If you're becoming a senior executive in a different company, again, it all makes sense because your story is there, your clarity is there, your confidence is there, and you're being known for that. So
working in the same job, the same level, no promotion, nothing, and I feel stuck. What would be your advice to this kind of professional who, feel stuck in their career? They haven't made any progress in years. They don't know if they should be making a transition. They don't know how to, make a progression at that point. What's your the person just feels like he or she is like kind of like in the shadows, not being seen, no promotion, nothing at all, no recognitions. What's your advice to this kind of professional who feels stuck?
For sure. So first of all, I felt stuck for quite a few times, and I think first of all, in a lot of technical roles, many times you get stuck because people are very comfortable with you doing the technical work, and they actually don't really want you to leap to leadership because they need the techies. So it's very, very common. And I think in many roles, when you do a good job, actually, it's easier for them to leave you there, right? Because otherwise they need to train a new person. It's a headache for the boss, right? But then it's really about, first of all, where do you want to go? So again, getting that clarity is really important. And sometimes it's about, talking to some colleagues and saying, what is your everyday like, right? Just kind of understand what's the lay of the land. And then when you know roughly when you want to go, or experiment at least, then it's about raising your hand to opportunities that, are not necessarily there, but your free time, let's shadow this person and help them out. And then A, you're going to see if you like it. B, you're going to show that you can. And C, if the opportunity will come in, you're going to be the next one on their radar, right? Exactly. So there's a lot of value in just raising your hand to opportunities that you haven't necessarily done. And it's really about, again, articulating, what's interesting is that many people will come and say, yeah, I really deserve more, or I work so hard and I need to get, really when you progress in corporate or in companies, it's really not about what you deserve. Okay. It's really about what the value that you're going to bring to this team or to this organization. It's really all about the value. And if you can articulate why the value that you're going to bring in that group or in that team or in that new function, that's when it's gold, right? So again, it's back to the clarity, back to the story. But when you articulate it in a good way, clear, and negotiate your way according to the value that you're going to bring, there's no reason to say no. They want you there, right? They want the value. They're scared of letting you go, but they want the value. So if you can articulate the value, that's when you're going to make it.
From, an employee who wants to move into leadership, right? What are some key tips that person should do or should have? I know, first of all, it's also like there's also the mindset thing with regards to not everyone can really be a leader, because I find is more leadership is very innate. I find. There's a lot of leadership courses and retreats you could go for, but some people are just born leaders, is what I find. Yeah. So for someone who wants to move into leadership, what would be your advice for that person?
Right. So, again, so it is about showing that you can more than anything, right? So I would actually divide my answer to two. So first of all, there's people that already have leadership skills. They're stuck because they're good at what they're doing, but they actually have the leadership skills. And if you can embed in your story those opportunities, even if you didn't really manage people, but maybe you manage projects and you helped with the hiring decisions and you've done training of new hires and whatever other things that management does or leadership does, when you can articulate that as part of your story, then you're starting to be perceived more as a leader. And you can continue with that, with showing that, with your LinkedIn article that is showing that you're not just a niche engineer, but you're actually looking at a broader picture and you're looking at the system level, you're looking at a team, and so if you can articulate the fact that you're looking bigger is better. But also in terms of people who haven't had as much experience, it's really about, again, just raising your hand to opportunities where looking around you, what does your boss need right now, right? What's one of their biggest worries? And many times it's something that they might be slipping, and not because they're bad, but because they're trying to do too much. And if you can be the person that will raise that, that's gold.
My next question is very aligned to this, and this is with regards to people who want to move into tech. So, over 20 years of experience in tech, like you've seen it, as an employee, as, owning tech startups and, coaching, tech startups as well. For someone who wants to move into tech, well, what's your advice? A lot of people find it scary because they believe, oh, well, Ilana had a degree in engineering, so she's an engineer. So, she's fantastic in tech. I don't think I can because I'm not an engineer. And which I tell people it's not true because I didn't study engineering or computer science or anything like that. Like, I don't write code or do any algorithms or any of that stuff. For people who want to move into tech, what would be your advice for them? Because I know a lot of people want to move into tech, but they're really struggling internally with giving themselves that opportunity to make that leap. And even if they have to fail, failing forward, basically, what would you advise for people, who want to move into the tech space?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first of all, you're spot on, because, the fact is that most roles in tech today do not need vast engineering knowledge. Yes, you probably don't want to be a coder. That's okay. But actually, what's hard for everyone is that there's a lot of roles today that nobody teaches you how to do. Like, nobody really teaches you marketing. Nobody really teaches you project management. Nobody really teaches you sales. Nobody really teaches you customer success. And I can go on and on, right? So if you think about it, there's no school that really gives you all these tools. And the only way to learn these things is to gain experience and to start. And, techies in that sense don't necessarily have an advantage over you, actually maybe disadvantage, because to some degree, if I'm thinking very engineering, maybe I'm not thinking the way you are. And the more we are diverse, the more we bring in different thoughts and opinions, that's where the company will actually do better.
Yeah.
So to me, it's actually, it's really not a matter of whether you're coming from tech or not, but you will need to translate your story to be relevant in the tech space. Yeah. So you'll need to understand what the job titles are. You'll need to understand what the expectations are, and you'll need to align your story, your lingo, your transferable skills accordingly. But again, most people don't have experience in what they're doing today. I've never studied sales. I've never studied management. I've never studied operations, right? I studied electric engineering. There's like no correlation between what I studied and what I'm doing today. So it's really about just trying and doing your best and learning from the experience and just continuing. So just do it. That's
just
my
do it.